104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. Broadcasting from the Lorenz Plumbing, Heating, and Air Studios. Your home for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Touchdown! Kansas City!
It's Ned Talk, your live and local Chiefs pregame show. Hosted by Ned Reynolds, Joe Western, and the B-Team. Proud members of the Chiefs Radio Network on 104.7 The Cave.
Well, Ned, if we keep meeting like this, people are going to start to talk about you and I because we seem to be get together all the time anymore.
Geez, just 4 days ago, I couldn't stand the absence. It was just overwhelming.
This is crazy. I think all year long I've heard people talk about this stretch of games for the Kansas City Chiefs, but when you're really here and you're really in the middle of it and you're going, wow. I mean, like 100 hours later, they're playing football again, and that, the human body's not really built for this.
It is certainly not built for that, and as a result, I'm fearful of injuries coming up today. I did a little bit of research and looked at how many times the NFL has played on Christmas Day. It's 21. I really feel like if Christmas doesn't fall late in the week, like a Friday, Saturday, they'll abandon Christmas Day. I really think they have to do that because coming from a Saturday game, even though it was a Saturday game, the Steelers and the Ravens and the Texans and the Chiefs all played on Saturday, and that's not enough time for the human body and in a game like football, especially, not enough time to recover.
This is Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. I'm Joe Weston. That's Ned Reynolds. Josh Roberts is with us today, hopefully fully recovered from the IR. How are you?
I'm about 95%, I think.
Okay, good to go though.
Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm here. I'm happy to be here.
Good to go. Let's keep this topic of conversation going on because it's interesting to me. I just noticed on ESPN this morning that. Of course, the NFL and college football challenging each other. Now the NFL challenging the NBA because the Christmas Day has been their day for a long time.
Yeah.
So, but it didn't work out so well for the NFL last Saturday, did it?
Against the college playoffs?
Yeah, the ratings were higher for the college football playoffs.
That's not the way I interpreted it, Joe. I thought it was 2-1 in favor of the NFL.
The story I just saw said it was college football outrated it.
I think you need to read that because what the ratings people can do is juggle their figures a little bit in terms of individual games. I know the Chiefs game beat the games that they played, Southern Methodist and Penn State, and then a little bit of Clemson, Texas. And the other, what's it say on there in your story?
A pair of Saturday NFL games drew a larger viewing audience than college football for the rollout of the sport's 12-team playoffs. The playoff game between SMU and Penn State averaged 6.4 million viewers on TNT. The network compared to the Texans-Chiefs game, which averaged 15.5. But that's a misleader because Saturday NFL game. Well, no, that's not what it said on the back here.
Yeah, it's the NFL was dominant. Now, keep in mind there are two things there. There's ratings and the estimate number of people, and those numbers are different. The ratings for the two of the pro games were quite high, but in terms of the numbers of people watching, it's a skewed math. Nonetheless, it's not a surprise that the NFL came back and was the leader in that category. It won't be a surprise at all if the NBA is. They weren't last year. They opened up on Christmas Day, and the Chiefs had theirs, and the NFL smashed them, squashed them. It was not even close. It was like a rating of 22-5 or something like that. But it's obviously based on numbers of viewers. This year will be a little bit different because of Netflix. Now,
right.
Here's the problem that's easily solved. If Netflix, when you turn it on, starts to buffer and behave like it did with the fight, or even if it doesn't do that, the game's here. It's on radio. It's free.
That's true.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, let me ask you this. What do you think is causing – I mean, there's always been, shall we say, a gentleman's agreement between all the sports that, certain times and certain days belong to us. And why is the NFL now looking at – we're not going to hold true to that?
Well, they didn't have any option. Here's what the situation was. It's a federal law. It is a law that the NFL cannot play opposite colleges during the regular season. High school and colleges, the NFL honors that. Now, there are various circumstances which do exist. The law was signed into effect 1961.
Oh, wow.
And John F. Kennedy was the guy who signed it. He was a big football fan. He said, this stands to reason. We have to leave those colleges and high schools alone, and the NFL can cram everything into what eventually turned out to be Monday and Thursday, but we'll have them all on Sunday. Okay, that law still exists, but keep in mind, regular season. The Army-Navy game was the last regular season game, as it always is. So the NFL could start their games and start playing the next Saturday, which they did. However, in that interim come the college playoffs, and they were the games that were on that opposite the NFL. But keep in mind, it's regular season. It's over. Everything's fair game. Nobody expected the college playoffs to come into being at that time. But it's not a rules violation. They can do it.
What do you think of it, though? I mean, do you think it's the right approach for the NFL? I mean, they're trying to cram as many games as they can into as short a span of time. And I think, for me, they're diluting the product a little bit.
Joe, I'll take you one step further on that, too. I think there are too many games. And they're thinking now about going to 18 games in the regular season. Now, they'll shorten the exhibitions, I know, but still, that is so hard on the human body. And the Players Association does not like it, but evidently they don't have any leverage. And do I like the games on at the same time? No, absolutely not. I'd rather watch one over the other. And in my case, if it wasn't the Chiefs who were on, I'd be watching the colleges because I think those college playoffs are very important. And they have a direct bearing on how football is perceived by the citizenry in this country. But again, no, I'm not a fan of it at all. But it has to happen. That's the way it's going to be.
Josh, your thoughts?
I don't like it either. It's the almighty dollar. The NFL is the big dog when it comes to revenue generation for sports right now in America, and so I feel like they're inching their way into dominating even more by doing this. And so I'm a huge fan of college football, so it bothers me that they're head-to-head when I would love to be able to watch all these college football playoff games and see what's going on there. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of it either. I think the NFL plays on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday, and then once college football's over, they play on Saturday, but let college football be over first.
And there was one game on Friday this year.
Right. Right.
That was the Chiefs, not the Chiefs, Eagles and the Packers, and they played in Brazil.
That's right.
Apparently, that's the only time frame they could get that game. And the NFL is expanding as we speak. I mean, eventually it'll be after I'm gone, but it'll be worldwide. They'll have franchises. And I can see the franchise over in Europe existing right now.
Yeah, do they still have a European?
Oh, they have more than that. They
NFL
have about
Europe League?
4 or 5 games in England.
Yeah.
And they have the one in Germany. Not the first time they played in Germany, but the first time ever in Berlin.
Okay.
They played, I think the Chiefs were in Frankfurt when they played. And then the one in Brazil and maybe one in Mexico coming up too. It's all by design.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, do you think it's a positive thing for the NFL? I mean, I know they do. I mean, I know that they're like any corporation that they want to get into as many markets, make as much money as they possibly can. But, I mean, we're talking about a future where you're seeing NFL players fly to London to play the London Beagles or whoever the team may be at the time. I mean, is it too much?
Well, yes, it is. It is too much within a condensed amount of time. Of course, the calendar is part of the problem this year, too, since Thanksgiving was so late. And as a result, it's just a different circumstance that they're facing. But I can't see a game being played on a Tuesday or Wednesday or even a Thursday which does happen on Thanksgiving Day when there are games on Thursday. Mm-hmm. But you have to do something to make it a little bit more amenable to the physical nature of the players and their conditioning process. They're all in great shape, don't get me wrong, but the fact is the body takes some time to recover. And in a concussive sport like football is, I hope not, heaven forbid on Christmas Day, but I hope there are not any serious injuries forthcoming.
Yeah. Well, Chris Jones was a little dinged up last week, and how much time, what will people say if something were to happen today in this game and a major component of one of these teams gets hurt?
Well, the excuse from the NFL or the teams will be, well, it's football. Those things are going to happen. But then many journalists, I've been reading this, are unified in their thought that this is too many and too few time, the factor. You're right about Jones. He is listed as questionable for this game. He suffered a calf injury, and that was in the game against the Houston Texans late in the ball game, and he limped off the field. And apparently that injury stiffened up a little bit on him, and he's really unable to get full motion. That's not to say he's not going to play, but he is listed as questionable.
This is Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. We are on 1 hour before the Chiefs pregame show, which starts about 45 minutes from now. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts with me. We're all just sitting around talking about the NFL season, too long, too much, just having that conversation. We usually start out the show talking about the Chiefs' performance, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch the game at all. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I was impressed with the amount of scoring that the Houston Texans came up with. 27-19 was the final score, and Houston could play. Houston's a good team. They can play the game. They're not as good as the Chiefs, and then again, I don't think any team is. I think the Chiefs are the cream of the crop in the NFL. But Kansas City was able to maintain a lead, maintain an advantage, and one of the reasons are that they were able to disrupt anything that Houston wanted to do. And you can understand that Houston has a lot of talent, but unless you're accustomed to a team coming in and just disrupting your entire attack, that doesn't mean their tackles. For instance, Jones, was he have 5 sacks this year? That's not what you look at. You look at the number of disruptions, which when he comes in there, and the guy's 6'8", somewhere around there, and he's waving those big arms up there. Hey, that's a major weapon in your favor.
Josh?
I thought the game was, I don't want to say pedestrian, but I didn't feel like the Chiefs were ever in danger of losing the game, even though it was closer than it probably should have been. You're right, Ned. The Chiefs' defense disrupted the Texans' offense all game. Their quarterback, Stroud, right? C.J. Stroud was running for his life. He made some young guy mistakes trying to make plays, and the Chiefs were pretty methodical when they needed to score. And so it was the kind of game that you like to see with the Chiefs because they scored 27 points for once, and they didn't look like they were in danger of losing at the end, like some of those other games this year have been. So there were a lot. It seems like there were a lot of injuries in that game too, though. Mostly on the Texans side, from what I can remember.
The receiver who caught the touchdown pass, it was described, and this
was an ugly one.
Accurate description is gruesome or ugly. It is because he had his kneecap. Disrupted. It's not in his regular position. And when you take, oh my God, well, you notice they took a lot of time down on the field with him. That's because they were reducing that and putting the kneecap back in place, which you can do. Mm-hmm. And Mahomes, for instance, had the same thing 4 years ago against Denver, and his kneecap was knocked out of place, and and there was a doctor on the field playing at that time. Duvernay.
The offensive lineman for the Chiefs. Yeah,
I wonder what he's doing these days if the Chiefs could re-sign him.
He's doctoring. He is a physician in Canada.
He is a doctor.
Right there, and a pretty good one. But anyway, he started to go down there and do the manipulation itself. He's an MD.
He knows what he's doing.
He said, no, stop. You can't do that. Another player cannot get involved in this. So the rules came into effect, but he was right there and he saw it. And yes, it's a serious injury and a gruesome one at which to look. But interestingly enough, it is not all that dangerous. You can put that dislocation back in place.
Sure.
One of the things we talked about last week was the return of Hollywood Brown, and he had a major impact in the game last week.
He had 3 or 4 catches, something like that. And, he's a fine player.
Yeah.
Marquise Brown can play the game, wants to play the game. You knew he was antsy on the sidelines as he recovered from the shoulder injury and surgery. But he is back, and he'll continue to be a very strong force for the Chiefs.
And the biggest concern for the Chiefs is that offensive line, and it is banged up this week once again. DJ Humphries is out, and Juwan Taylor is questionable. How are they going to protect Patrick Mahomes this week?
How's that going to affect the referees, since Juwan Taylor's the guy who always takes off early?
Juwan Taylor's been questionable for 2 years now.
Exactly. When we come back, we'll talk about today's game, the Chiefs and the Steelers. It's right here on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
I really don't know how I forgot to do this. Merry Christmas, Ned.
Thank you, and back at you, man.
Merry Christmas, Josh.
Merry Christmas, Joe.
Merry Christmas to everybody out there that's listening, all 3 of you.
It may be more like 2.
First of all, I want to pass along our condolences to our partner, Alex Scott. The Chiefs are playing the Steelers today. He's a Steelers fan, so sorry, Alex.
Yeah,
sorry about your luck.
I think we all probably share the opinion that Chiefs should win this one, but this has me very concerned. Pittsburgh will be. The fans there will be waving those terrible towels around. They'll be there in full force. I haven't seen. Joe, can you look up and see what the forecast is for Pittsburgh?
I can do that.
Cold.
It'll probably be cold, I would suspect. But is it damp? That's the real problem. But the Pittsburgh Steelers want this one. They have to have it. They've lost 2 in a row now to Philadelphia and then Baltimore, and that's put them right on the cusp of not making the playoffs. Well, they want to be in there. What's it say?
It says 38, cloudy. Doesn't say anything about precipitation, low 32. 39 will be the high. So there you are, your weather forecast, your Ned Talk weather forecast for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, sports fans.
That's what we got to do.
But you can play effectively at that temperature and in those conditions. So I suspect we'll see a non-influenced game from the meteorological folks, which is fine. Anytime they don't interfere is fine with me.
Yep.
I think the one good thing about this is that the Chiefs and the Steelers are both handicapped by the same problem, that they both played on Saturday.
Well,
right.
And interestingly, Baltimore and Houston as well. That's the second game today. It's a factor that has to be addressed by the NFL. First, you say this is the first time it's happened. But this is the first time the Chiefs will have played this year every single day of the week except Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
They had the Wednesday game. That's today. They've had a Thursday night game. The Friday one was their opener. That was against the Baltimore Ravens. Saturday, they played last week, Sunday. Bulk of them on Sunday and Monday. But this is just too much.
Dear Mr. Goodell, can you take care of it? Can you get a game on Tuesday for us, please? Because we need it. Maybe in Australia.
I'm not sure that he's the older one. That's also been rumored, playing down under.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not sure he has that kind of ultimate influence. Remember now, the commissioner is hired by the owners, and he listens to them.
He's their patsy.
He is, and if they have a situation in which 1 or 2 disagree, well, they want to be unanimous with everything they do. But whether or not they would vote to lessen the number of games, I think that's very, very doubtful.
What do you think, Josh? I mean, let's stop. We've talked about that enough. Let's talk about the Steelers. This is a team that at times this season has looked really, really good. But as you mentioned, Ned, they've hit a tough spot in their schedule. They They lost to the Ravens. I forget who they lost to the week before.
Philadelphia.
They've hit a really tough spot in their schedule. So they've had Philly, who's a great football team. They've hit the Ravens, who at times can be great, and now they hit the Chiefs. And so out of these 3 games, if Pittsburgh wants to be considered to be a real contender in the playoffs, to make a run, they have to win one of these 3 games. Today's their only shot.
Just win, baby.
Yep,
that's
win.
That's what you're looking at. The old Oakland Raiders philosophy from Al Davis: just win, baby. It doesn't matter how, just get out there and win.
We don't have Alec with us to talk about the Steelers and tell us what this teams look like this year. Of course, they started the year really interestingly. They traded for 2 quarterbacks. They've got 2 top name quarterbacks on their roster, Justin Fields and then Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was hurt at the beginning of the season. Fields was playing okay, so they didn't really want to replace him, and then that kind of went downhill. Russell Wilson righted the ship, and this team has been very good at times, but like I said, a rough spot in their schedule.
As long as Wilson can do his thing in the backfield and not be disrupted, he'll get the nod over Justin Fields. But I think Fields is a great quarterback in his own right. Give him a chance. He had the chance with the Chicago Bears and was not able to impress them enough to such a point that they would keep him. So he goes to Pittsburgh. He's picked up by them. But Russell Wilson is there. And Russell Wilson's an old pro, folks, and a guy who can get things done. He may not move quite as well as he did, but a terrific scrambler, a guy who has rushed for a number of yards this year. I've forgotten how many touchdown passes he's thrown, but it's 15 or 16, somewhere around there. But keep in mind, he's splitting his time because Fields will also get into that ball game, and Fields likes to do many of the same things that Wilson does. It'll be a two-pronged attack, so to speak, but will the Steelers gain quite a bit of leverage by having one over the other? I don't think so, because they're both the same level of quarterback.
Justin Fields is questionable for today's game, it says. When you look at looking at the statistics on the year for Russell Wilson, his QBR, which I don't know how they figured that out. How do they figure that, Ned? Do you know?
I'm sorry, how do they figure
QBR? How do they figure that?
I don't know.
It's voodoo.
He's got 15 touchdown passes to 2,100 yards passing on the season, and he's done really well as far as the interceptions goes. He's only thrown 3 this season, so he doesn't turn the ball. He fumbles some, but he doesn't turn the ball over. And the Steelers traditionally always a pretty good defensive team too.
They are, and I think they have T.J. Watt playing out there for them, and the Hayward kid is a tough hombre as well. Where they really do hurt is in their rushing attack, because their top rusher is not going to play. That's Najee Harris, but they can throw the ball, and that's the interesting thing about both Wilson and Fields is they are very good quarterbacks if they have time. And time is one thing that's in the Chiefs' favor because they don't allow a lot of time back.
That's true.
So we'll see how that manifests itself. But it'll be a challenging game. Does this fall into a trap game? Not really, because not in my mind, because I think Pittsburgh has a legitimate chance to win this one. I'm not predicting that they do, but I do think that they'll, playing at home and playing under these conditions and knowing fully well that they have to win to be in the playoffs. Yeah. Excuse me, guys. See, I come in here with you.
It's my fault, huh?
But I do think Ned. Pittsburgh's going to give them an awfully tough time.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, I agree with that. I think Pittsburgh, like we're saying, Pittsburgh is realizing, oh my gosh, we've got to win. We got to keep winning games. We can't lose 3 in a row if we want to make it to the playoffs. So, just like every team that plays the Chiefs, you're going to get their best. And this is a good team. This is a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, and they've won a lot of games this season. So this is a tough game. The Chiefs defense needs to be up to par this afternoon, I think, to make a difference. Because if they can get the pressure that they've been getting on Russell Wilson, that's when I feel like he tends to make his mistakes, just like a lot of quarterbacks when they're scrambling, trying to make plays. I see Russell Wilson being one of those guys that, because he is mobile, he thinks that he can create that space that he needs to then still make a play. And so I think that's where the defense could take advantage of him.
Well, they've clinched a playoff spot. Both them and the Baltimore Ravens are in the playoffs at this moment.
Yeah, but they want to be seated much higher than this.
Exactly.
Oh, so they're trying to win their division now.
What they want to do. And, of course, this game means something for the Chiefs because if they win this game, they have the number 1 seed. They've got the bye throughout the playoffs, and they've got the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. That'd be nice if they got the bye through the playoffs.
and the Buffalo Bills have to look back on their game with. There's so many variables involved. Buffalo just did eke by the New England Patriots. There's no such thing as a given in this league, and we've always mentioned that all season long. Is because
unless you're playing Jacksonville.
And Carolina,
or this year it's Carolina.
Pulled into that category as well. But again, anything can happen. I put a lot of this on the psychological advantage that I think the Steelers will have playing the Chiefs on a Christmas Day, knowing fully well the nation's watching. You want to put forth your best effort. And the Steelers are, I think, going to put forth their best effort. They're good. They're a good team, not a great team.
Since the Steelers really won't have much of a running game for today's game, do you just see the Chiefs pinning their ears back and coming right at Russell Wilson?
I do. I think that's exactly what they will do, but a lot of pressure on Wilson and Fields if he gets in there, flush him out of the pocket, make him scramble, make him do a lot of things. Interestingly enough, both Wilson and Fields are also good runners.
Yeah.
So if you get past that initial wave of disruptors that the Chiefs have, you could see some interesting results from their ground game.
Do you see a spy in today's game?
I don't understand why in the world all teams don't spy, why they don't do that.
Yeah.
It's a perfect defense. I know it takes away from defending a receiver. I understand that. But when you can force a quarterback to do what his objective is, and that's to maintain that possession as much as you can and then let go with a free receiver. Unless they get that pressure in there to force the quarterback to do things that he doesn't want to do, that's a very important aspect of what their plan is.
When we come back, we'll talk about the college football playoffs, maybe talk a little bit about the New York Cardinals.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Hey, Ned, when are they going to correct this college football thing and get too many teams out of this playoff system? Because it's just too many now.
Never.
All the home teams won. All the upper seeds won. This is just boring. Why do we even care, right?
Because there is too much money to be doled out to these colleges, especially if you make the playoffs. Just look at what happened in these first 12 games. First time they've ever had 12, and it's probably going to expand to 14 or maybe 18 before it's all over. And it may not even be over then. They may open up the whole thing. What happened this year? There were teams who did not belong, but that's going to be the case. No matter what, there are teams who don't belong in the championship competition. The one that puzzled me more than any was Arizona State being given a bye because they won their conference. That is total balderdash.
Hogwash. I agree.
Because they had 4 conferences picked out to get automatic berths, and the champion, and Arizona State won the championship in the postseason, and they won it in their championship playoff.
Yeah,
I say do away with that championship playoff. This is the leagues now.
The conference championships,
the Big Ten conference championships, where they have them. Do away with them. They don't accomplish anything. And seed the teams 1 through 12 or however many. But seed them. Seed them with the committee. They can see who belongs and who doesn't. And a lot of it's their strength of schedule.
Why not just get rid of college football at all teams except for 12? Just every college get rid of their program completely.
You stop it.
And then just give the top 12 teams in the nation, the 12 that people care the most about, your Alabama, your Ohio State, your Michigan, your Notre Dame, all those teams, and let all those players that are out there playing at all these schools go to those schools, and the best of them can play. Oh, sort of like a professional league.
Well, it already is that now, but I challenge you to go over and tell a guy like Ryan Beard at Missouri State that, hey, we don't need your football anymore. We're not going to play football. Ain't going to happen. Football on the collegiate level is ingrained in this country.
Oh, I mean, I agree. I'm not seriously suggesting that, but we sat here 2 weeks ago when Alabama was out of the picture, and we all said that was the right thing to do. And then we saw the first round of the playoffs, and everybody was like, well, that was the wrong thing to do. Yeah. Alabama should have been in there. They're better than those teams.
What you were looking at.
None of this matters.
Well, it does matter. And the fact of the matter remains that we talked about that without realizing that the NCAA did, and they're not involved, the committee that's involved, did what they felt was the right thing. That's why we called it, because Southern Methodist had made such a great showing in their first year and had come back. But that's just it. They played in their league championship game against Clemson. They didn't win it. They didn't win the game, but they put on a remarkable comeback in the second half, and the committee says, well, they're deserving of a playoff spot because of that. No, they're not. No. And Southern Methodist, which plays here in town next year, it's the Bears' home opener. That's right, the Mustangs will be in here, an Atlantic Coast Conference team, and they'll be very strong. But in that elite group of players, they weren't, but then yet the rules are such that they got in.
What do you think, Josh? You're a college football guru.
My only problem with it is that they seeded conference champions higher than they would have been otherwise, because Arizona State and Boise State and SMU were not in the top 12 until after the conference championship games, and then they moved them up, which pushed other teams down. I think if you're going to do this, it needs to just be top 12 seeds at the end of the regular season. Either the conference championships don't affect the rankings, or you eliminate the conference championship games. Because the conferences have gotten so big anyway, it's kind of a moot point to me. And I'm saying this as an Alabama fan. Alabama didn't even play for the SEC championship this year. They had a down year. They lost 3 games. In my opinion, I said this here to you guys, they didn't deserve to be in the top 12 anyway, because they lost 3 games and they didn't have a stellar season. I don't have a problem with SMU or Boise State or Ohio State being in the top 12 if that's the way the rankings come out at the end of the regular season. I don't think there should be so much weight put on conference championships.
Well, how about this? How about put more weight on the conference championship? If you don't win your conference championship, you cannot be in the playoffs, period.
Well, the problem you run into with that is there aren't 12 conferences, so you wouldn't have 12 conference champions.
That's, in fact, Joe, that's what they have done. It's the 4 of the elite conferences. The champion gets an automatic bye in the first round. That's not the way it should be. They should be reseeded. I don't think you can eliminate a team from the playoffs because they have done such and so in their league and all that's wrong. That's why I say let the committee seed them 12 through 1.
Then what does the regular season even matter?
That's the other
key. Well,
key.
that's the problem you run into. That's what we say in basketball. That's what we say in hockey. That's what we say in a lot of sports. What difference does the regular season make? Because once you make it to, if you make it to the playoffs, then that's all that matters. If you don't make it to the playoffs, at least in college football, they still have bowl games that generate revenue for the schools and bring some prestige. They get a trophy on a shelf. But it's become, unfortunately, bowl games have become a consolation prize because of the way the playoff system has developed.
And that should not be the case at all. You're right. You're making an analogy about them playing for second place or playing for third or whatever the case is going to be. But that's not how. Hopefully, that's not how the players view it, nor the coaches, because it is a bowl game, and that's the way. And actually, the playoffs are bowl games. These 4 quarterfinals that are coming up on the New Year's Day holiday. Are all bowl games.
For the major bowl games.
Mm-hmm. Then the 2 semifinals is Cotton and the Orange. Yeah. And that's the next week.
But how do you do away with just the simple prestige of the school? How do you weight? I mean, that obviously gets weighted into all this. Well, you can't say it doesn't.
It does in the sense that the prestige of that school has led to the strength of schedule that they typically have every season.
But some of them don't have a strength of schedule. Though. You look at Alabama and you look at Ohio State, and they don't play that many. They're not playing a great strength of schedule, and that's the part that has to be addressed on this.
Except, Joe, in the case of Alabama and Ohio State for that matter, it's the conference games. The conferences may not have been quite as strong as they've been in the past. That's why I say you seed them at the end of the season. But in terms of the games they play, Alabama, for instance, you had some pretty good ball games in there. Who knew that Oklahoma wasn't going to be all that good this year? Nobody. They thought they would be. Alabama, Oklahoma was a trouncing. That's what kept Alabama out of the playoffs. And the case is similar to what else they have during the postseason and the regular season, too. You are scheduling these games for monetary purposes, except for the league, and the league is the one that puts them all together. Take Missouri, for instance. Missouri, next year on their schedule, I believe their first 7 games are home games.
Wow.
First 7. Now, where's the fairness doctrine in that?
Yeah.
It's the way things fall. And if you can get away with it, which they do, there's no rule against it. In fact, I'm not sure there's a rule against anything anymore.
So to your point, the only way that they could fix what you're saying is to eliminate all the conferences. And then the teams would have to schedule games based on the strength of those teams from previous years, saying, okay, well, Ohio State won the national championship last year, so we want to play them next year. And so it would change the landscape that way, because then Alabama might play the top team from the West Coast and the top team from Ohio and the top team from Florida, as well as playing Georgia and Tennessee and LSU. That would be about the only way that you could really spread it out to where they all have a similar strength of schedule.
But the conferences are too powerful.
There's too much money.
The SEC is more powerful than the NCAA. I mean,
most likely, yeah.
It is.
The Missouri Valley Conference is more powerful than the NCAA.
Yeah. They generate so much revenue, they're not letting go of it. That's why the bowl games still exist, even with a playoff system.
So it's broken. It's never going to be fixed.
Keep in mind now, guys, that the NCAA has nothing to do with postseason. That's not theirs. It is in basketball. It's their tournament in basketball.
Oh, okay.
But once the regular season is ended, the NCAA is out of it. It's committees, the Orange Bowl Committee and the Sugar Bowl Committee and all that, and the Committee of 13 that puts together the playoff picture.
Gotcha.
When we come back, we'll give you our picks for today's game. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Here's a couple of NFL games for you today. We've got one right here on 104.7 The Cave. Of course, the Chiefs and the Steelers. That's what we have coming up this afternoon. Starting at noon, the game is on Netflix. Ned, how are you watching the game?
I suspect, you have no option if you're going to watch it. It has to be on Netflix. They're the only ones who carry it. But, of course, there's no reason why you can't listen to it for free.
That's
right here.
Right here on 104.7 The Cave. If you've never listened to a Chiefs game on The Cave, listen to it, because it is Mitch Holtis and Dana Hughes do a phenomenal job painting a picture for you as you listen to the game.
Yeah, if you can't get excited listening to those guys, you don't like football.
Exactly.
Touchdown,
Kansas City. All right, Ned, who's your pick in today's game?
Well, this is a very nervous pick for the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to eke out a victory, as they have in the last month and a half, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it has been. They have been accustomed to playing close games. This one, you're saying, well, both teams are affected by the same factor. They are both playing within 4 days. Pittsburgh and Baltimore and Houston also involved in that situation. Yes, that is true. But the Chiefs have to leave home, and the Steelers do not. They are home in Pittsburgh for that game, and I really feel that's a dangerous hurdle to overcome for Kansas City. I think the Chiefs will win it, but I'm going to pick a slugfest against the Steelers, who are not a bad ball club at all, folks. I'm going to say something like, let's say 27-26.
What do you think,
27-26.
I think that's a pretty good prediction right there. I think just because Pittsburgh can't afford to lose 3 games in a row, I think Pittsburgh is going to eke out a close win in this one. I think it could be 28-26. It could be 30-28. I think there'll be some scoring. It'll be an exciting game, and then it'll grind to a halt in the second half because they're both worn out. And I think Pittsburgh's going to win this one.
27-12 Chiefs.
Nice.
Two for the Chiefs and 1 for the Steelers.
Yeah,
here.
I think that, like, intuitively, every time I've said something about the Chiefs this year, it's been completely wrong. So I'm going back to my Costanza, but I'm staying with the Chiefs because I just don't think you can bet against this team in any way, shape, or form because they just seem to. They never seem to run out of rabbits in their hat.
That's true. They find a way to win, and I hope I'm wrong. I just feel this one worries me too, Ned. Just like you're talking, this is a tough one.
Keep in mind, guys, the felines fall into this. Cats have 9 lives.
Yeah.
Well, the Chiefs have maybe 2 left.
Maybe.
They've used up 7 or 8 right now.
I hope for Christmas they got some more lives. I seriously do.
That'd be nice.
I want to say thanks to Ned Reynolds. Thanks to Josh Roberts for being here today. Appreciate you guys coming in and being here on a Christmas day.
Well,
I know
thank
it's
you.
important to some people that there's a voice out there for people to listen to. So thanks to all of you that are listening to the show. Thanks to Mike the intern, Brian Tyndall, Corbin Campbell, our mad professor, and Nick Fury will take you through the game. We'll be on sometime a week from Sunday. That is January 5th. They have not determined when that game's going to start yet. Just keep following us on The Cave, and we'll let you know when it's going to happen. Download us as a podcast at 1047thecave.com. It's Ned Talk. Merry Christmas!